Okay, hey, ladies and gentlemen. As promised for about 2 weeks now, I think I said that it would be last week. We're going to be doing an autopsy of British FantasyCon, the premier event for fantasy horror and science fiction in the UK. And I am joined by two very special guests today. So we want to thank you if you are on the North American side for joining us during your lunch hour. And if you are on the European side, for joining us during your commute home or hopefully end of day. So if you are out there and listening, go ahead and hop in the comments. Let us know you can hear us, and we'll take questions as they come. But I am joined by two lovely special guests. I don't think I ever bring guests onto my recaps like this. But coming all the way from Milton Keynes, England, Professor Kit Power.
Okay, hi.
and and making this tri-international, joining us from Abertillery, Wales, the mayor of FantasyCon, Mrs. Kaylee Dobbs.
That's it. That is
Yeah.
my official title.
Oh, I could tell the moment I sat down and got there.
I usually
Uh,
have a hat,
a
but
hat.
you know.
We'll have to get you a hat for that particular event.
Yeah, and a
So,
mustache.
and a what? A staff?
A mustache. I feel like the mayor should
Oh,
have
a
a mustache.
mustache.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll make all of that happen for you. So I think first of all, and I think I probably speak for everybody here, we want to say I personally want to say thank you to everyone for graciously welcoming me to your country, your political entity, if we prefer. And hosting me was lovely. And special thanks to all of the organizers of FCon. I know you guys put in a lot of work, and I definitely jerked you around a lot with all of my events. So I can only imagine. Does anybody know how many people were there? Was it 800 or a couple?
I don't know the figures, but I mean, I just want to echo what you said. I mean, it was just for me. I'm always kind of impressed. I always forget the scale of it until I get there, and I was so impressed yet again. Every time I'm looking at the program, there were always in any time slot there were typically two of the 4 or 5 panels that I desperately wanted to go to, and I couldn't do both. So yeah, incredible. Just an incredible program of events, and it's great that FCon's still attracting the kind of, I mean, the caliber of guests and the caliber of participants that it is. Really exciting stuff. So yeah, as ever, just a huge thrill, and I missed most of it because you always do because there's too much
Oh
going
yeah,
on.
oh yeah. It can never be more than just your personal experience.
Yeah,
Um, so I think we all met. So I had pretty much no big travel problems, and that was good. Now for you guys both drove, or Kit, maybe you took the train.
yeah. No, I got the train, and it was disquietingly smooth on the way there. It was a nightmare on the way home, so at least that kind of conformed to stereotype. But yeah, I had a good journey getting there for
Okay.
once. Yeah.
Yeah, I drove because I did think about getting the train, but then I remembered how much stuff I was taking with me.
Hmm.
But also I get like travel anxiety, and I need to know that I can leave at the time I want to leave, and because whenever I book trains and stuff, things always really go wrong, and then I get like stressed and angry. So, and also I very much needed the boot of my car for all of the books that I left with.
I can imagine. And now we loaded you up with books to bring.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to ruin it, but fuck it. We came very close to selling out.
Mm.
Now are of course, if you're joining us for the first time, Kaylee and I are French press, and Kit is our newest French press author, or journalist, perhaps we should say, coming out with Millionaire's Day, the novella, which has actually been going very popular since it released about 2 weeks ago. And we brought about 50 copies of Millionaire's Day, and I think I only came home with two.
Mhm.
So thank you to everybody at FantasyCon for picking up their copies of Millionaire's Day and making my flight home Well, not for that reason. Anyway, less stressful. So we all got there on Thursday, and you guys were already down in the bar hanging out. And I, of course, say that I came for the Millionaire's debut and everything like that. But I mean, the real reason I came was to meet Mike Brooks.
Yes.
And you guys were already there hanging out with Mike, and Andrew Freudenberg and David Watkins and a couple of other people. So what was that first night? Was that just getting your feet on the ground and getting your hotel rooms checked in and everything?
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty much. I think so. I think for me, I like to. I used to like to arrive on the Friday and stay on the Sunday night, and there is still, I think, an attraction to that Sunday kind of after party vibe. But this time, I wanted to come a day early, just to get settled and get situated. It was a big weekend, obviously, with the book launch for me. Also chairing one of the panels on Friday, and I really wanted to felt like I had my base of operations set. So it was a bit. Yeah, it was a bit of a comfort blanket thing, I guess, for me getting there Thursday. But also, it turns out the Thursday evening vibe is quite a lot like the Sunday evening vibe. It's more relaxed. Not everyone is there, but there's enough people that you can hang out with. And the con hasn't started yet, so you're not kind of, I don't know, you're not on in the same way. Or you're not. I don't know. I don't feel the same pressure to be in that particular sort of mode. So it's really valuable. And as I say, given what a big weekend it was going to be for me, I wanted to have that. So yeah, I made a point of. I really enjoyed that Thursday evening, and it's always great. I mean, Mike's just one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and I only ever see him at FCon, but every time I do, we carry on the conversation wherever we left it off last time, like nothing's happened. He's a great human being, so it was great to see him that first night, and Andrew as well, of course.
Yeah, I felt dumb. Well, firstly, yeah, I wanted to arrive a day early, and it's the first time I've done that because every single convention I drive to, something horribly wrong happens with my journey there, and then I'm really aware that I'm missing part of my weekend, and I get like really angry and stressed. Like last year when I walked into the FCon hotel, I saw a group of people like, "Oh, hey, Kaylee," and I was like, "No, I need an hour." Really. So yeah, that was just to settle in, but also I just sat next to Mike Brooks talking to him, and I didn't realize it was that Mike Brooks. So I was like, "Oh, what do you do, Mike?" And he was like, "Oh, and he started telling me, and then at some point I was like, "Wait a minute." Like, "Oh, tabletop, is it? Oh, what did?" And then I'm not like super familiar with his books, but I've heard of Mike Brooks.
What are you doing? What are you doing then
I know.
with your life?
But I know that Mike Brooks is a pretty big deal for his in his subgenre and his niche and everything. And I was like, I should have known just by the hair, because everyone talks about his glorious mohawk.
Yes, it was glorious.
Yeah.
No, I even pitched him. I think he has an orphaned manuscript. So, Mike, if you're watching, I did pitch him on going with French press. We'll break a bunch of previous French press royalty barriers and stuff for you. I'm sure. And yeah, Kaylee. So I talk to you pretty often, and you have a cheerful personality, let's say.
Oh, thanks.
But I don't think that I've ever seen you so genuinely happy and just like pleased as punch to be there as I did on Thursday. And I was like, "Oh, here I come. I'm gonna make everybody miserable and be the out of towner and blah blah blah." And you're just like so happy to be there. You're like, "Oh, come on, let me introduce you to everybody." Blah 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 blah. So like I was like, "Okay, good. She's in her happy place." Oh, we have Patrick Ward. Cheers, Steven. Thanks for the stream. Congrats again on the Splatterpunk. Any word on when you will get it painted and all? Okay, so if you guys don't know, my Splatterpunk award was the Albino Splatterpunk Award this year, and I have been promising on TikTok. I've not forgotten my promise to recreate my speech. I sort of wanted to do it when the award arrived. So no. The short answer is no, Patrick. I don't know. I did reach out to John Baltusberger, who I know organizes a lot of the Splatterpunks, but he said that Wrath James White is still working on it, I believe. So more to follow, and I may just have to recreate that speech without the prop. I guess we'll see here. But thank you, Patrick. So that Thursday night, we also met up with. I'm gonna feel bad if there's somebody I forgot, but Andrew, and we met up with Simon Clark, who's another recent French press author. I mean, that's not what he's famous for. He's very, very famous, but we bagged him for Strange New Moons. And Ben Unsworth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is that everybody? There was 6 of us, so there was the 3 of us. Yeah, and those 3.
Yeah.
And we went out for curry,
Mhm.
which is apparently just British for Indian.
Yeah.
But there is also curry that you put your fries in, which is another thing.
Curry sauce. That you
Curry
pour,
sauce. Okay, all right.
that you pour your
So we
fish and
can say
chips.
curry sauce to specify.
Yeah.
Okay. So we went to the famous curry place in Chester, England.
Yes, we did. And we had a very nice meal. And yeah, one of the more entertaining things was seeing you step on the thin ice of Doctor Who fandom, not realizing that this is something about which everyone, especially at FantasyCon, everyone in Britain not just has a strong opinion on, but like a very detailed, strong opinion on.
And we were company-wise with the motherload of Doctor Who info because Ben Unsworth is basically just Doctor Who the entire franchise.
He is a walking Wikipedia, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was dressed as, was it Matt Smith that night? The reason why I'm not sure which was because he was dressed as a different Doctor every day, if not several times a day, perhaps.
Is that just how he dresses, though?
I think it is just how he dresses.
Yeah.
I think he
but
just
that
is.
still gives you a whole plethora. That's still a whole wardrobe or two, I feel like.
He certainly, his shirt game was significant this time out. I think we have to give a shout out to that. It was genuinely impressive, especially with, thankfully, obviously Jasper not turning up. Someone had to pull the shirt game forward, and he did a great job. Very proud of him.
Yeah, it was the first time I met Ben in person. He was at ChillaCon, but that was the year that I was too shy to talk to anyone, and then when I did talk to someone, I embarrassed myself horribly. So a lot of people were like, "Why didn't I talk to you at ChillaCon?" I was like, "Oh, because I'd already hit my humiliation quota, probably." But oh my god, yeah, I just want to say I love Ben and everything about his entire personality.
Yeah.
He's such a lovely. He's in the protect at all costs bracket for me with Brendan Fraser.
100%.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a special.
Yeah, it's the whole category.
There's Brendan Fraser, and there's Ben Unsworth, and then there's like the rest of us.
Pretty much.
Maybe Emilia Clarke and Keanu Reeves can go in there as well. But
I'd probably put Ramsey Campbell in there as well, to be fair.
Jenny.
He's probably in my Ramsey and Jenny are probably in my protect at all costs bubble.
We do have to circle back around to Ramsey in a minute or two.
We certainly do.
But I have been, oh my god, Ramsey and Jenny, in fact. But Kaylee, I have been meaning to ask you. You and Simon Clark looked like you were having a really intense conversation. But I assume that was not about Doctor Who. Was that a good just getting to know each other kind of thing, or?
Yeah, because I haven't met him before, but it's Simon Clark, so I was and I was really proud of myself because for once I met a hero and didn't cry and just start talking about the giant critter ball from Critters 2. So which is what happened with Mick Garris.
I was like, did Simon Clark write Critters 2? I don't.
No, this is ChillaCon, the first convention I met Mick Garris, and I thought, ask him intelligent questions about screenwriting and directing and adapting things, and then I just started almost crying about the giant critter ball from Critters 2 instead, and that's all I could think to say, and he was very kind as he backed away from me slowly, and that was in front of Paul Kane, Tim Leben, and Grady Hendrix, so that was
good moment.
Thought I'd double it up twice, and also embarrassed myself in front of, because I met you for the first time, Kit, in person. But me and Kit have been friends for years. But and then for some reason I got struck with the what's the word I'm looking for? I with the fangirl, I guess, and approached him with every book he's ever written. I was like, "Oh, excuse me, can
Katie, genuinely the coolest thing that has ever happened to me at any event ever. I just want to be super clear about that. Someone turning up with a stack of every single book I have ever brought out. I mean, I've got to be honest, Katie, I'd forgotten about a couple of them until you turned up with them. It was
I haven't.
so cool. It was so cool. So,
but this time round, when I met Simon, I thought, okay, keep your cool, Kaylee. This isn't your first rodeo. It's okay. He's just a man. As it turns out, he's not just a man. He's one of the most wonderful, lovely people in the world, and the most unpretentious author I've ever met in my life. And we were deep in conversation just about Stephen King, publishing, writing stories, and he was giving me advice and asking me questions about what I do, which I thought was extremely sweet of him. And we just had a really, really nice long conversation about stuff we love in fiction. So I feel bonded, and now decided that Simon's my friend now.
Very good. I do, before we turn this into the Simon Clark hour, which is going to be our presentation next week, I just want to say, so we Americans are sometimes known for being slightly churlish, you might say. But one night I was with Simon, and I had bought one of his books for Wesley Southard, who's like probably as big a fan as you are, Kaylee. And I was like, "Oh, Simon, Wesley's a huge fan of yours. He's going to really appreciate getting this book." And I record a message. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm sitting here with Simon Clark, and he really appreciates your," because he was very gracious. He's like, "Oh, tell him I really appreciate his support. I love hearing from Wes." And I record this message, and then I look, and I'm like, he's like, "Oh, you were recording a message for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, would you like to say something?" And he's like, "Oh, hey, Wes, this is Simon Clark. I really love, working with you, blah, blah, blah." And then Wiley Young texts me back, and he's like, "Tell Simon Clark if he calls Wes bruv, we'll give him a $5." And I'm like, I'm trying to make a good impression. I'm trying to bridge the gap between our cultures. And you guys are like, make Simon Clark talk like the guy from The Boys. But anyway, Thursday night. So Friday morning, we had a lovely, what's it called, fry up.
Yeah.
Oh, you really went deep on the language, man. I like this.
What can I say? Whenever I post something, people. I might know a little more about your culture than I let on sometimes,
Okay.
because people like to correct you on things, and people get very excited when they can tell you, like, what is full fat Coke? And I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing. Tell me more. Anyway, we had a lovely fry up. The vendors room got started, so my basic thing for the weekend was being in the vendors room and putting out Millionaire's Day and a couple of other French press titles. So what did you guys get to do with your freedom on Friday?
I milled around and just sort of tried to get the lay of the land, see who was there, and also tried to find my way around the hotel, because I found that place very confusing, not just in layout, but thematically. There's a lot of weird statues in that place. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason or cohesion, but anyway, that's a whole separate thing. But I spent most of the day just seeing people as they were arriving and receiving books. Because my greatest ambition has finally happened. Where when I started my website, I was like, oh, I really hope I hit the point where authors I like, just started giving me their books for free. And it happened. It finally happened. So I swapped them for my book for anyone who actually wanted it. But yeah. So and then we were on the panel. in the evening.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh yes, the evening panel,
Mhm.
which we'll talk about in a second. Kit, did you say you were moderating something on Friday afternoon?
No, it was Friday evening, and it was that panel.
Oh,
So my Friday was interesting because I actually went to bed at a sensible hour on the Thursday, which is almost unheard of for me. But I knew I had I wanted to pace myself, and that paid dividends on Saturday night,
on
Sunday
Saturday.
morning, which we may come to. But I got so I was actually awake at a human hour as well. Unusually, I was awake by about 9 o'clock, and I woke to a a lovely message from the aforementioned Mike Brooks saying, "Hey, I'm about to do a walk around the city walls of Chester. Do you want to join me?" Um, to which the only possible reply is, "Of course." And it was kind of perfect because I'd missed the message. He'd actually started walking, and he was literally outside the kind of Airbnb place where I was staying when I kind of messaged him back. So it couldn't have worked out better. So that was it, really. So I did that, went back to the hotel, showered, changed, and then I think went to the pub across the road to eat, which is where I spent most of my time. Most of my time eating the meals because it was, several orders of magnitude cheaper than the hotel, and the food was fine. And then I think I spent most of the afternoon with you, Stephen, in the signing room because I had in the dealer's room because I had to sign the books. And then once I got there, I realised I had this revelation of like, wait, I don't need to go around doing the con. The con will come to me because I'm in the dealer's room. Like everyone's going to come here eventually, so I'll just sit here. So it was really cool. I could also kind of watch you sell books, figure out how that worked. That was very helpful. And I enjoyed how our pitch for Millionaire's Day developed as the weekend went on. That was
Yes.
a real highlight for me.
Now, I can tell you that pitch. But were you not both wearing your boots of kicking, you and Mike Brooks?
Oh yeah. So we both wear New Rocks, and Mike, of course, Mike's cooler than me, so he's got like 2 or 3 pairs. I've only got 1 pair. But he was wearing his black New Rocks when we met him on the Thursday. Friday, he was wearing his flame New Rocks, which are the same as mine. So when I got down and met Mike, literally the first thing he did was look down at my boots, look up at me, and said, "Well, this is awkward. One of us is going to have to change." To which my reply was, "Mike, you're the only one with more than 1 pair of New Rocks, mate. So it's not going to be me." But yeah, anyway, we marched around the city walls wearing matching New Rocks, which I think was actually kind of marvelous. Oh, we went to the cathedral. I forgot to mention that. We went inside the cathedral as well because Mike wanted to talk about how much the cathedral influenced some of the Warhammer 40k designs.
Oh,
And I could see his point actually when we went in. You could see the kind of spikes on spikes with some of the
yeah. Oh,
decorations.
okay.
Oh, yeah,
I
okay.
gotcha.
I see where you're going. Yeah. Anyway,
Interesting.
yeah.
He's an interesting guy, Mike, isn't he?
Oh, he's just genuinely, as I say, one of my favorite humans. I see him every FCon. I don't really. I mean, oh no, he comes to Writeopolis sometimes. He comes to my fortnightly live show with RJ and Scott. So he'll often be sitting in the chat actually. So I'll see him there. But yeah, and he just, as I say, for me, it's just that amazing thing. The con does that where you just have conversations with people and you don't see each other for a year, and then you pick up where you were, and it's like nothing, like no time's passed. But yeah, anyway, so that was that. Yeah, and then I was sitting with you, and we were developing our pitch for Millionaire's Day, which was great fun until the panel. Yeah.
Can I add one of my Friday activities?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Remembered, I did spend most of that accosting people, asking them to sign books that I'd taken with me, because at every convention I make a list of all the authors that I know are going, and then I see what books I have of theirs that aren't signed yet, and then I take them. And my theory was that if I got all that done on Friday, then I wouldn't be walking around lugging books around for the whole weekend.
So that didn't pan out.
Well,
That's why we have to test hypotheses.
well, instead of lugging books that I'd taken with me, I just kept acquiring books. I had to make several trips just to my room per day to drop them off. So, but I'm not complaining about it because I had such a great haul and I'm excited about every single book that I got. But
to be fair, if you don't come back to a FantasyCon with enough books to build a small fort, have you even really been?
I only realised it had got out of hand when I had to pack the car up on the last day, and I had to make 3 trips.
Luckily, you had a big keytar case to keep all the books in and everything.
Yeah.
So, and to Kit's point about talking to people and feeling like you're just falling back into conversations, I do always say this during my streams. If we had a lovely conversation, I apologize. We can't possibly recap a whole 72 plus hours. I love you. We all love you. We all had hundreds of conversations, and this will just turn into name dropping. We've already done plenty of name dropping, so it's not like we're too good for that or whatever. But we don't want to turn this stream into an hour of name dropping. So yes, we love you. Sorry if we don't mention you. You know,
Charlotte Bond.
there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Priya Sharma. Um, but so to that, you know, I'm sitting in the vendor's room, and I was sitting next to Rowan, Rook, and Deacon. Oh, I'll tell a real quick story about Rowan, Rook, and Deacon, which is a tabletop game. You know, I usually try to introduce myself to the people next to me. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? My name's Steve." And the guy's like, "Hey, my name's Grunt." And I'm like, "Grunt. Okay, this is one of these uh, you know, situations where you have a name and you have you have a nickname or whatever." And then I think it took me 2 or 3 days to realize his name was Grant, and I wasn't used to the accent. But then people started calling him Grant with different accents, and I was like, "Oh, his name's not Grunt at all." So sorry, Grant, but it was great tabling with you guys. So I'm sitting there, and as folks are coming up, and I'm just like, "Oh, hey, so let me tell you about this novella that I've got." And basically, what happens is sort of like the Twilight Zone, or it's like the Black Mirror. I'm usually like, "What do you like to read?" And they're like, "Oh, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay, do you like Twilight Zone?" Then they're always like, "Yeah." And on the rare occasion when they're like, "No," I'll be like, "What about Black Mirror?" Then they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's cool." So I'm like, "Okay, this is kind of one of those stories." And everybody in the UK wakes up one day with 1 million pounds in cash under their bed, and then there's kind of like the bad, you know, you think that's really good, but then there's like bad outcomes. So there's like the bad gangsters, and they want to get everybody's case. And there's like a little girl who doesn't know better, and she's like, "Oh, I can finally buy that toy that I want, but that means I have to wander away from my family." And I'm doing this whole song and dance thing trying to explain the story. And then they would inevitably pick it up, and they would be like, and I think the thing that I wrote on the back was something like, "This takes place in Milton Keynes, a uniquely diverse city in north of London," or something. And then when Kit sat down at one point, he's like, "Hey, you don't have to do that whole thing. Just tell them Milton Keynes sucks and it's going to get destroyed." And I was like, "I don't know. I'm a guest in your country." He's like, "No, no, no. Just tell them Milton Keynes sucks and it'll get destroyed." I'm like, "Okay." And I started doing this, and then people started buying the book. And I was like, "Okay. Apparently there is a lot of anti-Milton Keynes feeling in this country." So we were happy to capitalize on that.
It was really fun seeing people's eyes light up when you said, when either of
Yeah.
us said, like, "Yeah, we're destroying Milton Keynes with this," or they were like, "Oh, okay." It's really fun.
So Friday evening. Oh, CC Adams. There, we'll drop another name. It was great. I have met him once or twice before, and he was very appropriately apologetic that he didn't remember me. I'm like, "Dude, I met you at a con like 2 years ago for 5 minutes. You know, like I don't expect you to remember me." But CC Adams, who is a fixture, I take it, of the British fantasy scene. Yeah, okay. Was leading a campfire stories event. And by the way, I'm going to try and pitch this at future, you know, future cons that I do over here, because this was very cool.
Oh, Tales in the Dark, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So so it ended up being the three of us, CC, Simon Bestwick,
Yeah.
and
That was it, I think 5, yeah.
that was it?
Yeah.
So we turned out the lights and then read our stories. And it was very diverse. It was a very diverse set of ghost stories. Or what was it called, Kit? I keep calling it something, but I can't remember what it was actually called.
It's I mean, the title's Tales in the Dark.
Okay.
It came up from, so 4 or 5 years ago, I did a reading at FantasyCon, and the story was called Big Dog, which is a story that's in the short story collection Voices. And I normally at FCon read a story that I've never read before, and I had it on my Kindle screen reader, or it might have been an iPad. And at the very last minute, because the story is that story is a first person perspective, but it's a teacher talking to a child, and they're both locked in a cupboard while there's an active kind of school shooter thing happening. like literally, I was the last person to read, and literally sort of 2 minutes before I went to read, I was like, why don't I just turn the light out? Because it would just add to atmosphere, because the screen's got its own light, and then I could read it in the dark. And it went down so well that I basically sort of suggested to the organisers, well, look, let's do it every year. Let's do Tales from the Dark. Let's get horror authors together. And we've run it 3 or 4 years, and then I just completely forgot about it this year. Totally left my mind. I guess because I was thinking about Millionaire's Day, I was thinking about the launch and the other stuff, so I didn't put it down on the form the way I normally do. But bless him, CC did. So they booked it in, which is why it was a bit of a last-minute scramble to get the people involved. But yeah, anyway, it was certainly. If I ever forget again, I deserve slapping, because it's always one of my favourite things at the con. It's always just an incredible atmosphere.
It was full too.
Yeah. People love it. Well, I mean, it's how horror stories. It's a great way to experience a short horror story. You know,
Yeah,
it really is.
Year, and it was really good last year as well.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was a fantastic event, and like you say, I mean, what I loved was the diversity of the stories. Everyone brought something very different. And again, considering it was thrown together effectively at the last minute, I was just bowled over by how well it went. Really, really great. So yeah, I mean, but absolutely franchise it out, man. Like the more the merrier, because it's yeah.
We'll just call it Kit Power Presents Tales in the Dark. Yeah,
Tales from the Dark. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know,
oh no, we're doing that. That's
okay. All right,
no, that's going to be a great marketing tool.
Okay, cool, great.
All right. So, anything else Friday? Would we just all retire to the bar then?
No, we had a panel. Cody and I was chairing. That's why I was late to the. That's why I was late to the dealer's room, because I was chairing a panel and or moderating a panel, and I'd gotten halfway through designing what it was going to be about, and then forgot. So I had to write it that afternoon. So I got my laptop out while I was having my whatever I was having, burger and fries for lunch, and I typed out what we're going to do. So yeah, it was the horror fantasy mashup, but we decided to interpret that rather than it being a straightforward kind of what are good examples of fantasy horror fantasy, and why the lines blurred and blah blah blah, which, you know, no offense, but I've seen that panel before. We just decided to do it like who's going to win in a fight. So it was this total like brawl scenario where, you know, the fantasy, I got everyone to pick their favorite horror character, their favorite character and their favorite setting, whether it's horror or fantasy. Because I had 2 fantasy authors, 2 horror authors, and then we just made them fight. So it's like, you know, I mean, this isn't one from the night, but like, you know, Frodo ends up in the Overlook, who wins? Right? Does horror or fantasy ultimately win that fight? And then we got suggestions to the audience, and you know.
Okay, Stephanie Ellis says, "I loved that panel." Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was so much fun to do. And I got to give all the credit in the world to the panelists, because I literally threw it at them with like 2 hours notice. We had not planned it. I was supposed to, and I just forgot. So yeah, it was, and everyone was a really good sport, and the audience was great, proper interactive, and that helped as well. But yeah.
Stephanie was great with the input, by the way. For people, for whenever Kit wanted suggestions, Stephanie never let us down.
No, absolutely. But yeah, it was really fun, and as I say, we had a great. I mean, the rest of the panel just really, really went for it. I do think the fantasy guys got robbed on at least one of the questions where I felt they'd given a good answer. I think we just had a horror-centric audience, which is
yeah.
A little unfortunate, but still, it was a lot of fun.
I thought you guys did that deliberately. I thought you stacked the audience.
I'm not that smart. It's just how it turned out.
Okay. So, Saturday, big day. Oh yeah, big day for a lot of reasons. So, yeah, back up. I think we probably had breakfast again. Oh yeah, that was when who was it? CC and Andrew, I think, joined us for breakfast as well. And then back to the vendor's room, and I was getting a little panicky at this point. So I've never done a British con. I don't know what the sales are to expect, but I only sold maybe like 5-6 books on Friday. This is before we discovered the magical formula to selling books. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to go home with 45 books. I don't know how am I going to make this happen? But then, you know, I'm back in the vendor's room selling a couple books, hanging out with Grunt and those guys. Then we have noon comes. And I don't know how much of the behind the scenes we should we reveal the behind the scenes or just tell everybody how that book launch went.
I mean, I think we've shared a brief video, haven't we, on Facebook already of a bit of footage that Kaylee was kind enough to shoot at the launch. I mean, basically, you know, we've had a lot of problems. We've had a lot of problems with Millionaires Day, right? I mean, you're putting a brave face on it as the publisher, and I guess that's your job. But I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. Like, it's just been a catastrophe in terms of like trying to get the word out about it happening, trying to get the physical copies, the kind of lengths we had to go to make sure that they made it into the venue on time and to the dealer's room and then to the launch. It was yeah, I don't know, maybe in a few years time when we're able to see the funny side, we can give a full account of all of the kind of mayhem of the day. But it was, I think, suffice it to say, and people who were there will know, like I mean, even there it was down to the wire as to whether or not we were going to get the books to people. But luckily we did, right? I say luckily. I mean, is your back okay, Stephen? Because that case was heavy before it was full of books.
That case was enormous, and I think all three of us, it feels like a monkey's paw or something that we were handing off at different points.
Yeah.
But yes, that empty case had to be, I don't know, 100 pounds or something. Yeah. It wasn't like a keytar case or something like that. Some kind of instrument case.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you had your big launch, and we did sell, good 14 or 15 books there.
Yeah,
and
really well.
In the middle of that, amongst our other issues, was when I discovered I could not, in fact, take a credit card.
That's right.
I had somebody gave me a credit card the day before, and they either had they were either from Ireland or America or something, and the credit card went through, and I was like, oh, thank God I can take credit cards over here. Okay, now I know that. And I get to the launch, and I'm like, oh, that was just that one person had a Irish card or Canadian card or something, and I cannot take cards here. So we gave away a couple. You folks don't know this, but a couple of you just benefited from the largesse of French press. Because I would rather that than hold up the line for an hour. I was finally just like, yeah, okay, it went through fine. Have a good, enjoy the book, So that went really well. Oh, then we had to hurry with that case.
That's right.
To our reading with Ramsey Campbell, which is not Ramsey Campbell and Sarah Jane Townsend. And we're talking about, this is on the first, we were on the ground floor, now this is on the first floor, up a flight of stairs and from the back of the hotel to the front of the hotel. So we're selling books up to the last second, and it's like 12:58. I'm like, oh right, we have a reading.
We gotta go.
So we run to this reading. I think it went well.
Yeah, it was good. No, it was superb, but it was that thing of like, I mean, yeah, on top of all the absurdity of almost not having the launch go off, and then to have to almost like Blues Brothers style, like haul us across because it was also like the launch room was at the opposite end and down a flight of stairs from where they couldn't have been further apart in terms of like rooms. It was a real sort of Murphy's Law in full effect. But yeah,
and they were like, we need you guys to get out of here because we have another launch coming up. So stop taking payments and get out of here. Like, we want to get out of here, but
it's like, we're trying.
Fans.
There were a few great write-ups of the launch, by the way, and I apologize, I don't remember who said this now because I was reading them all as people were posting them, but someone referred to you, Steve, as a nice American gentleman.
Little do they know.
I can't remember like what the actual sentence was, but I just was like, I have to make sure that Steve knows that was the impression when you saved the day when you came running in with the books. nice American gentleman.
You know what? Let's go with that. That's fine. But yeah, we got up to the room, and what was nice was someone had clearly sent word ahead because we were obviously incredibly apologetic, slightly out of breath, and maybe a minute late. And it's Ramsey Campbell, that's not a circumstance any of us want to be in. No, it's fine. They told us you were on your way. It's all right. Okay, good.
He's very chill, Ramsey, isn't he?
No, he is. He's a delight, an absolute delight. But yeah, and I think you're right. I think the reading. I mean, I will say, Stephen, I was super impressed with your reading. I really enjoyed it. I know I wasn't aware that you had that kind of. I wasn't aware you had that kind of non-fiction voice, and that your non-fiction game, frankly, was that strong. It was really, I was impressed. I didn't just enjoy it; I was impressed by it. So, and it was a good job, because I think, I mean, I think I talked about it actually in the panel, because I did get in the reading, because I got asked a question. But like, I broke with my normal habit of bringing an unpublished story and reading that at FantasyCon, because my feeling was, no, if I'm sitting in a room with Ramsey Campbell, I'm just going to read the best thing I've got that works in 10 minutes. Like, there's no like, don't mess around. You know what I mean? Like, this is the big league, so just get it done. So I ended up reading, Baptism, which was a story from another story from Voices. But yeah, I loved your piece, Stephen. I thought it was a fantastic piece of writing, and you read it very well.
Yeah, people were talking about it. I think I forgot to tell you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Afterwards, I can't remember who it was in the bar. I don't remember who I was talking to now, because my memory is I've slept since then. But yeah, it came up when people were talking about the readings and stuff. People really liked it.
Oh, good. Yeah, that was. I've been talking about this in a couple of these autopsies, but that's kind of my anthem to horror writing, but it's also my anthem to my favorite song.
Right.
And I feel terrible, because I've promised Nathan Ludwig. I mentioned Nathan Ludwig very briefly in it, and I've promised him several times that he was going to be at that reading, and now I think I'm going to have to retire it after that. Like, I've read it a couple of times already this year, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, I was okay with reading it in the UK because no one's heard it.
Right.
But I'm like, I think I read it twice at American cons now, and I'm like, I have to retire this one now, and I think he still hasn't heard it. But no, that's good to hear. Yeah, and that's one of those like really kind of heartfelt pieces where I think I don't think I even mentioned the word horror until 4 minutes into it. But then you're like, oh, he's not just rambling. This is how he feels about his genre. So like that's what I like to do. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, everybody.
Can I just say, you guys are really good at like readings as well. I learned something about myself in Tales from the Dark, and I really don't like reading my own work. I felt really unprepared because I was a last minute addition. So in my defense, I didn't have time to practice or anything, but I thought that I'd be fine because I was a theatre kid. And then I got like 3 lines in, and then the horrible voice that came in, like, nobody wants to hear this, Kaylee. This story's trash. And then that was what I was thinking for the whole time. Yeah. As I was reading it. So and because I went after you and Cece, and you and Cece did such a good job with your readings, like it was really like performative as well. And I was like, oh shit. And then cushioned then between you two, and then you and Simon Kit. So I was like, oh, they all nailed it. But I don't know if I did as badly as I was afraid I did, because
no, you didn't. You did a great job. I mean, firstly, it is a brilliant story. I mean, I asked you to read that one because I loved it and I wanted to hear you read it because I thought you'd do a good job with it, and I think you did. But I think don't underestimate how utterly crap it is to do that on basically zero notice, and that is,
I've never done a live reading.
Yeah. Right, that was your first reading ever.
That's absurd. Then in that case, you didn't just do well; you kind of knocked it out of the park. Because that's absurd. If that's if that's your first public reading, you have nothing to worry about. You are very, very good at that indeed. Because that's an important, and in that was such a high pressure situation.
It was fun though. Thank you so much for that. I did have a couple people afterwards said, "Oh, I liked your story. Why is it so mean spirited?" I was like, "Thank you. That's what I was going for."
I mean, I got to be honest. That's why I wanted you to read that one, because that's what I like about that one. It is so nasty. It's so like vicious, and I think like
I don't know why I'm like this, because my reading preference is happy endings. So But yeah, no, I loved all of your stories. I really enjoyed. I couldn't make it to your reading with Ramsey. I can't remember what I was doing, but I was doing something.
I think you're probably still ferrying crap from the launch, right? Because we had to leg it off. I think you were left holding the bag maybe at some point. I don't know. Possibly.
I don't remember. It's all when Stephen, you're really good at keeping track of stuff because when you say things, I'm like, oh yeah, that was that day. But when I'm trying to remember, it's all just a jumble in there. So,
And you don't even drink.
yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of which,
Oh boy.
but we would be remiss. So we did also do. I also got to moderate Kaylee in the Teenage Experience as Body Horror on Saturday evening. So at this point, I'm in the vendor's room all day. I have to go immediately to a panel. Kaylee's, I think, doing panels from, I don't know, 4 p.m. or something. And neither of us have eaten, and we're all starving. And then she's like, oh, it's time for the awards. And I was like, that's right. I forgot about what is it? It's the British Fantasy Awards. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have this event, and we go down, and I get to sit with Mike Brooks for an hour or whatever. I'm like, so do you like things? How's college for you? But anyway, that was very nice. So the awards, we don't want to do a whole recap of the awards. I mean, it was very nice. It was very lovely. Um, I was a little bit surprised at how many Americans were in the horror category.
Mhm.
Because Stephen Graham Jones actually ran off with it. You know, a good friend and fan of Slash Viber, and good supporter of us and everything. Um, I was a little bit surprised about that, but I know Fracassi was in there. He's very well deserving as well. But I think the big keystone of the night was oh God, I don't even know what it was. Was it the Lifetime Achievement Award?
It's the Carl Wagner.
That's it, the
David.
Carl Edward Wagner
Yeah.
Award.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And as soon as the speakers started speaking, and it might have been, was it the organizer Shauna, and was like, "This is somebody who's been in horror for 60 years," and we're all like, "Oh, okay, it's Ramsey." So Ramsey Campbell, well deserved, wins his Lifetime Achievement Award, and he get up and he told a rather blue story about him and his wife.
So funny.
Actually, maybe I'm speaking out of school. I probably shouldn't repeat the story, but I very much enjoyed that he was like, well,
Oh, they recorded it, so
Oh, the
oh, did
video's
they?
out there. Yeah, the
Oh, so
Yeah.
it's
video's
out
very
there.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
Pretty
yeah.
sure.
But yeah, it's just watching this. Is he in his? He's got to be in his 70s or 80s. And he's like, yeah. So I was plowing my wife when, and this is like his awards acceptance story, and I'm like, God, let that be me in 30 years.
it was so good because obviously the award was a surprise to him.
Yeah.
Didn't know he was receiving it, and the way that they made sure that he was in the room was they asked him to present an award, but the one he presented was quite early on, and so obviously him and Jenny had enjoyed a tipple in afterwards, and it's Saturday night and everything as well, so that they were enjoying some wine. And so and that was like the last thing they did, was it that award, I think, or one of the last, the second to last, if not the very last. So by the time they called him up there, I'm not saying he was drunk or anything, but and you know what, it was heartwarming. I almost sprang a little tear actually, because the standing ovation and the applause went on for so long, and it was really heartfelt. Like, everyone in there loves him, and it was really heartfelt, and he looked really touched. And then the first thing he said, he was like, okay, that's enough applause now. And then when it quieted down, he just went, "You bastards."
Yeah.
That's right. That was the first thing he said.
But the thing about Ramsey is, and I mean, I've he's been a fixture of FantasyCon as long as I've been going. Like, he is amongst many other fine qualities. He's genuinely one of the most unflappable people I have ever seen. Like, he just doesn't, like, things just bounce off him. Like, he's impervious, and I think that was a measure of genuinely his response. And actually, I think probably the choice of story as well was. I think that was the most flapped I've ever seen Ramsey Campbell. Like, that was, and that's just how it comes out when you're Ramsey Campbell, right? Is that you just sort of you call everyone a bastard and then you tell a rude story, and it's because that's like, yeah, it was extraordinary. But what I mean, it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but for me, it was a real privilege to be there for that. It was a great moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it was lovely, and yeah, we obviously don't want to like go over all of the awards because this will take up all the rest of the time. But like Taker winning the best newcomer, I think that was the award she won, and it was just so. It's so lovely seeing people like overwhelmed with like recognition, and they worked really hard. So, and the Tiny Bookcase as well.
Tiny Bookcase boys, yeah, I was going to shout them out. They're wonderful, wonderful human beings.
It was their
happy for them.
It's their first convention too, so I was like, what a great memory of your first convention that you win an award. Yeah, it was lovely.
Can I say, listen, guys, the horse is out of the barn. Everyone that got up was like, I didn't expect to win, so I didn't prepare anything at all. Now I'd like to thank my agent. Guys, we fucking know that you prepared a speech, okay? I got it. You've got to do that. British thing.
I tell you what, sorry, but my funny version of that is the year that Rob Sherman and I were both up for. He was up for best short story collection for his We All Tell Stories in the Dark, and I was up for Song for the End, and neither of us won. And at the bar that evening, we gave each other our speeches. Because of course you've written them, so I went like, well, yeah, someone's going to hear this speech. So we just performed our speeches for each other, and whoever else happened to be passing through, because we were quite loud by that point. But yeah,
may I tell a quick barroom anecdote from the weekend?
Of course,
takes us the time.
This is my favorite thing that happened at this convention this year. This is still making me laugh my head off every time I think of it. So at Simon Clarke's book launch, they couldn't get the card reader working. So Simon's publisher, Roger Keane, who is also an author, said, if you want to buy Simon's books, just find me in the bar later when the card reader's working. So I said, I was like, Simon, I will, I said to Roger, I will be around. Please make sure you have, because I definitely want these books and stuff. And then he messaged me at some point, like, hi, we're in the bar now. So I went down and found him, and he was with Simon. And he said, oh, okay, great. Which ones do you want? I'll go and grab them for you. And he said, oh, you and Simon wait for me. So, and you joined us in there, Steve, we went into like the more quiet room, and Roger was like, okay, wait here, don't move, I'll be back. And then me and Simon were sat there for so long waiting for him, and it was like half an hour later. I was like, I don't know where he's gone. I feel like he's not coming back. I was like, give me a second, because the raffle's going on and I'm very dedicated to the raffle. I was like, let me just run into the bar and see, and if he comes back, just message me and let me know he's here. So Simon was like, oh, okay. So I ran to the raffle, and who do I bump into but Roger with a pint, just standing in the group of all the raffle winners. And I was like, Roger, and he went, oh, you wanted those books, didn't you? And he was like, I don't know how many pints he was in, but it was like he'd lost all memory of where Simon had gone. And I think he'd forgotten that he'd even spoken to me and that he was supposed to go get the books in the first place. And he just got caught up in the raffle. So had to send him off to get the books. Sorry, this is probably you had to be there. I'm just telling the story now. And I'm like, this is only funny to me, isn't it?
No, not at all. I was there, and it was quite funny.
It was just so hilarious running into this raffle and then just finding him there amongst everybody.
And we're starving. We're both starving.
Right.
That's the background of this story. What I was saying earlier. It's like 11 o'clock now, and neither of us have eaten since like breakfast, I think.
Yeah.
So I finally got a kebab, which is different from the kebabs they have in Germany. I found out. It's more like just a meat taco. It's just a big old meat taco. But I was like, okay, meat taco, British kebab. Got it. Remember, do not order again.
Yeah, you have to be quite drunk for those to be nice, Stephen.
Yeah. You have to be very drunk and very hungry.
Like I
was certainly very hungry. Yeah, it should have been okay, actually. You were in the correct condition to be eating.
Yeah.
I enjoy the cultural differences. I enjoy how flabbergasted you are by the word whilst.
Oh, whilst.
Yeah.
You put whilst in one of your reviews just to get my goat recently.
No, I put them in every review. That's just how everyone uses whilst here, Steve.
It's a great word.
No, this is crazy talk. You wouldn't say whither and whence and hither and hence. You have to pull out these 18th century words because American doesn't know. Oh,
Hey, I
let's all
used heads.
really
I
lay it
use
on
tense,
for him.
yeah.
Good morrow, sir.
I used heads just
I've
today. I'll have
definitely
you
used
know.
tense, yeah. Hence is not unusual.
So what? Hence isn't unusual.
No,
Jeez.
I wouldn't say so.
No, we use it all the time.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway,
I love the way he'll never be able to know if we're fucking with him or not.
Saturday. No, of course not.
He'll never know.
And it will be very rude for you to tell me or anyone else to break the code of
We can never
silence.
break character, so
Yeah.
you never know.
So this is where it became more like the premiere. Oh, one thing I did want to say real quick about the Ramsey and that kind of thing. I really like how you guys. I feel like the horror authors and the fantasy authors and the sci-fi authors were all like equally loving of him. And that impression I felt like stretched through the whole thing to me. I was like, there was a horror track and there was a fantasy track and there was a sci-fi track. Like it said on all of the events, like this is horror or whatever. But I loved that there was very much a mingling and everybody seemed to appreciate and understand. And I was like, that's very cool because we kind of don't have that here. We'll very much get like, oh, you write horror? No, get away from me, kind of thing. So that was cool. But then Saturday night, I felt like was when it turned into like what I expect from a con. So at a certain point, the three of us, and I think Mike Brooks and CC Adams and Dave Watkins and a couple of other folks.
Phil
We all what who?
Oh, Sloman, yeah.
Phil
Oh,
Sloman.
Phil Sloman. Okay. We're finally hanging out and doing the thing and talking about being authors and stuff. And then and I remember I went to the bar and I was like, "Are you guys closing up? Is it last call?" And he's like, "No, mate, we know what we're doing here. We'll stay open a bit later for you." And I'm like, "Okay." But then at some point, you guys all toddled off to bed. So here's Kit and me, and Kelly had bought a bunch, uh, a bunch of age-appropriate beverages for the launch, which we won't go into. It was perfectly legitimate and not at all illicit. Um, so we're sitting here and we're staring across from each other, and last call's gone. Everyone's gone. I think the whole bar was cleared out, right?
Yeah, it was pretty quiet by this point.
But at this point, we have a bunch of alcohol left.
Four hit flasks.
4 flasks.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what really bothers me about you people? And Fracassi told me this. And I was like, you don't go long and you don't go hard. And I was like, if this was back in the States, I'm like, we'd be greeting the sunrise right now. And I think you took that as a challenge, maybe, Kit?
I felt that very personally, Stephen. Yes,
Did
I
you?
did. I
Do you
felt
remember me saying that?
I do remember you saying that, and I remember thinking, I understand that I'm now being called upon to defend my national honor, and I will not shirk from my responsibilities at this point. I've got 4 hit flasks. Let's go.
So now we had never met before.
No,
I think we've been friendly, but I also, you also kind of have in the back of your mind where you're like, I'm gonna travel 5,000 miles, and this guy's gonna be an asshole, and I'm gonna be like, why did I sign him?
Yeah.
But now we're sitting there and we're talking philosophy, like you do, very very coherently and cogently, right? I'm sure.
No, absolutely.
Like if they had been recording us, that would have been like an advancement in human
It's probably
endeavor.
just as well they didn't, because I think there'd have been a revolution in at least one of our countries. So it's probably for the best.
There was politics.
We were on point, man.
Yeah. We were solid.
We fixed a lot of broken things that night.
And I remember I kept going. I'm like, oh, he thinks he's still drinking, but he doesn't even know. I'm still drinking. And then you would perpetually be like, oh no, you think you're done? Guess what?
Oh yeah.
So, like I said, we're not at all illicitly drinking outside booze in a hotel bar or anything like that. And I think Well, let's just say I think the sunrise was beautiful that morning,
Yes, it was.
and we had to be back at the vendor's table at like 10 or
Yeah, we
something.
did. Yeah, we did.
And I think I got 2 hours of sleep that.
That's about what I got. Yeah, that's
Oh my god.
yeah, that's about right. And because I had to, when I got back to the hotel room, I probably could have gotten maybe 3 hours, but I had to spend an hour drinking water and stopping the room from moving.
Oh, well, I had a kebab to finish.
Oh, right. Well, lucky man.
Yeah.
Because nothing better than I mean,
Oh, yeah.
what beats kebab? Cold kebab. Obviously, that's just the best.
Oh, yeah. If it's been sitting around for a couple hours, that's how you want it.
And also
like
because
congealed.
Yeah, because my entire diet had mainly consisted of extra salted fries. I didn't even need. I set an alarm, but I didn't need it because I was woken up 15 minutes before my alarm went off by an incredibly painful leg cramp brought on by just eating salt all weekend and nothing else.
I thought you were going to say a bout of explosive diarrhea.
No. It was relatively genteel in that sense, but I was still limping by the time I got to the dealer's table. I think it was also delayed reaction from the walk around the city walls actually in the new rocks, which probably hadn't been like great. But anyway, yeah.
Well, that explains that then.
Yeah, there you go. You were too polite to mention it.
I was wondering why you were limping that day.
Yeah, that's what it was. So that certainly woke me up though, which is good because not a lot else might have done.
I did not know that you guys were up that late drinking or that you drank because I saw you the next day and to be fair, I didn't know. I didn't notice anything.
Well,
we're professionals, Kaylee. We're writers.
Yeah. I can't drink at all, as you guys know. Makes me just ill immediately. I can't. It's not even a hangover. I just get ill immediately if I drink. I think there's something wrong. There's something wrong with me. But I don't. I don't really need it. I dread to think what I'd be like. I talk too much as it is sober. So, like in the body horror panel, where I start just oversharing really personal things, and then 10 minutes in realize I've made everyone uncomfortable.
I thought that was lovely. I thought your contributions to the body horror panel, because everybody was like, yeah, you remember The Fly or you remember The Thing? And then you'd be like, I remember my own life.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, you like The Fly? And I was like, oh, I touched my own intestine this one time, and then started regaling everyone with the stories of my car accident. And I always forget that people feel very uncomfortable when I do that because everyone else goes to, oh my god, that's hideous. But this was, like, what year is it? This was 14 years ago for me now.
Right.
So I'm quite this doesn't affect me at all to talk about it anymore. But no one else knows that, so they're just like, oh. And then also right before the body horror panel, I'd taken migraine medication, and I usually go straight to sleep if I take it, because otherwise it makes me peculiar. So I got like midway into my intestine story and then just thought, oh, I think I've been medicated a little bit, like, and then I shared that with people as well, and I just thought, stop. Just
I don't think there is such a thing as oversharing when it comes to a FantasyCon panel. I think it's fine. Honestly.
Well, people were very receptive because
there you go.
We had a small audience for that, but then people in the audience were like sharing this. It was kind of like a therapy session. It was really nice.
No, it was the crowd what other crowd would you want than the body horror crowd?
Yeah. Apparently,
Adam Millard. Adam Millard I got to meet. I forgot about that.
Oh,
lovely human being.
He was delightful.
Yeah,
would not have pegged him for a wine drinker.
Well, Adam, I'm always delighted to see Adam because I can be just as authentically weird around him as it comes out, and he just takes you to come.
Yeah, no, he just rolls it. He's a dude. He's really great.
Yeah,
I was glad to get to bump into him a couple of times, and I did have a panel on Sunday as well.
Oh, what was yours?
So mine was male characters and avoiding toxic masculinity.
Oh, it was great. I went to it. It was.
And those of you who've read Millionaire's Day at this point will probably already be laughing because my basic thing is don't. I mean, why would you want to? Like, I'm a horror writer. Why would I want to avoid one of the most horrific things that's in mainstream culture right now. Are you mad? So yeah, it was good. It was a fun. But it turns out everyone else on the panel felt the same way, so it went really well.
I was gonna say, and after the manliest night of
well, there you go. Exactly. I mean, to be fair, my blood supply, I don't know if I was, I think my blood supply probably was toxic at that point, to be fair. It may well have been. So it was literally toxic and masculine at that moment. I think that's probably true. But yeah.
It was a really good panel, Kit. Really,
Thank you.
really interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it is a subject I was looking forward to kicking around. I just thought the name was kind of a bit, but then, as I say, luckily, so did everyone else, including the moderator. Were like, yeah, I didn't pick the title.
Yeah,
it turned more into kind of interrogating kind of toxic masculinity, which I think, that's one of the things we can do that's worth doing. So yeah, I thought, and the other panelists were really smart. I think that was my first panel I've ever done with CC as well. I've seen him on a few, but I think that's the first time I ever got to sit next to him. That was very cool. He had some really strong insights. Yeah, it was good. It's good panel.
He's got really strong everything, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
And I must ask you, Stephen, did you get a hug from CC?
No, I got a big apology. What we did, I may have overshared with CC. I may have scared him off on Saturday night because I kind of sat down with him and I was like, "Here's the real deal. I'm here. I'm pretending with all of you people, but here's what's really going on with me." So I may have scared him off, but he apologized for not remembering me from 2 minutes 3 years ago, StokerCon or something, and I was like, "It's fine, man. I'm perfectly happy to see you." But no hug. I think it was awkward for him at that point or something.
When you said, "Oh, I scared him off," I don't know why. I thought you were going to follow that up with, "Oh, I sat down and just admired his biceps." Openly.
Well,
you're saying more about yourself than about me now, I think.
It's just nice. Everybody notices them.
He did talk about when we were about to go off to drinking. He was talking about going off to working out, and we're like, yeah, man, go, you definitely do as many push-ups and sit-ups as you want right now. We'll be keeping it down here for you.
Yeah, I can only. Oh yeah, you really need to hit the gym right now, CC. Go on, get in.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you say all that, but there is a reason CC looks like CC and we look like we do. I mean, like, the man puts in the work, and
put in the work. That's the key takeaway from this event, and everything is put in the work.
100%.
Yeah.
I also had the Space Horror panel with the Stephanie Ellis, who may still be in the comments. I was very excited about that and got to talk about the hematophage. That was the first time I really kind of got to be myself and not the editor of French Press for the weekend. So that was fun. And I forgot my name tag, so I'm sure nobody had any idea who I was. Yeah, so then the vending closed up relatively early, like normal time for a Sunday. And then Kaylee was the mayor again, the queen of the panels. And Kit and I were wandering around, and we went and had lunch at that bar that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So that was, despite the night before, that was our first time, I think, schmoozing as editor and author, because then we were talking about all the, like, hey, here's what we need to do. Actually, maybe we should announce that. I don't know if we've announced this publicly, or is it still premature about next year?
I mean, I think it's gonna happen. So I think we're okay. The details are still to be nailed down, but I think the
details to be nailed down. But we will be having the American launch of Millionaires Day in March at Scares the Cares AuthorCon in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Yes.
So Kit will be coming out to sign all of your books and, challenge them to a drinking contest or whatever you feel like after hearing this autopsy.
Oh my God. Yeah, thanks for that, Stephen. That's just what my liver needed. Yeah, and I'm really excited about that. I mean, Scares That Cares is obviously an amazing event, an amazing charity. It's very cool to be supporting that, and I can't. It's way overdue. I'm really excited to be able to get out and and meet my American friends, who most of you I know very well, but only through the internet. It will be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, super excited for that, and super excited to figure out how the hell to pitch Millionaire's Day to people when Blowing Up Milton Keynes isn't an immediate sell. Like, that's going to be really fun. We have to work out a whole new pitch, but
just general like the UK.
Yeah, we could do that.
I suppose. Yeah.
Like, do you like Monty Python? It's sort of like that. All right. And then Kaylee snuck out and didn't say goodbye to anybody.
Yeah, that was
I looked for you for ages. I swear I did.
I know you did. Who would have? I don't know why we would have been across the street, but yeah.
We were across the street eating and basically waiting for our hangovers to land. I think that's actually what was going on. I was like, surely I'm going to start feeling awful any minute now.
Well, I started feeling tired because I didn't get a lot of sleep over the weekend because I'm a child and I'm too excited. And so like I was going to bed at reasonable hours, but I was still awake for most of the night.
Right.
And by the Sunday, it was really catching up with me. And I was so tired. I just thought I need to start the drive because it's like 3.5 hours. But it was weird because I messaged you both, and then I got a message back, and I thought I don't know how I misread this, Stephen. I thought it was from you saying, "Oh, I'm in the lobby." So I was about to pull out of the car park, so I parked back up and I went running back in. But it was Ben Unsworth that messaged me, and I went right past him because I didn't realize it was him that had messaged me in my head somehow. Looked all around the bar and then came back and he was like, "Hi," and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Oh, I see now, my mistake." But I was really tired, so I was sorry to not actually say goodbye to either of you, though.
No worries. Not worried about it. And that, like I told you, I'm like, that's all just, stuff you do anyway. We got to have the time together and everything that I felt like with both of you was important, and with a lot of people, Adam and everybody that we talked about. So yeah, I mean, I then got screwed. I was supposed to be home on Tuesday, and I ended up spending the night in Slough.
Don't ever correct him, anybody, on that one.
Yeah, no, it was delightful. Delightful layover. Thank you, British Airways, so much. But United got me home all right. So just a day late and another day of vacation. But that's all right. And then you guys all got home safe.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy to see the kitties. And do you have cats, Kit?
I have 3 cats and a dog. So.
All right. Well, I'm on board with the 3 cats. I don't know about the dog.
The dog doesn't know about you either, mate. To be fair, the dog will have to, we'll have to see about that.
They can sense evil. I've heard they can sense evil.
Ziggy's very particular. She doesn't like everybody. That's for sure. She's a good dog.
And I still have to send you your copy of Good Dog, Kaylee. I've actually got it sitting right here.
Oh, good boy.
Yeah, good boy. The one thing I freaking forgot to bring, on my transatlantic trip that I was supposed to, that like cannot be replaced or bought or anything, is a signed copy of Gavin Dillinger's Good Boy. So, anything else? Any last thoughts? Or I don't think we have any other questions in the chat, but thanks everybody who's been watching. Numbers have been pretty good for an unannounced afternoon live stream.
Oh, cool.
So thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll post this to YouTube and everything later. But do you guys have any parting thoughts or things we didn't get to? I know, again, it's 72 plus hours. You can't possibly cover everything, but
I just want to say thanks to sorry, whoever gave me the vid, but that's not actually what I was going to say. Yeah, just thanks to everyone for such a great weekend. I really, like, as you said at the start of this, Stephen, I was like the happiest person ever, and I always am at those conventions because I feel it's very family away from family for me, and you know, I feel like quite a weird person in general, but I don't feel weird when I'm in this crowd because no one makes me feel odd, if that makes sense. And I'm really comfortable with everyone. And I, you know, this is probably why I got sick from the weekend, because I was hugging everybody for days. But yeah, everyone just makes it such a good time. And yeah, lovely to meet the people that I got to meet as well. And looking forward to the next one.
Well, I have no proof of this, but I think we can all agree that it was David Watkins that gave you the.
I am not reopening beef with Watkins. We finally and uneasily buried the hatchet at the con. I am not. I'm maintaining a Switzerland-like neutrality about that statement, Stephen. I'm not going to be drawn into that at all. I mean, for me, yeah, I same as you, Kelly. For me, I mean, I remember my first con, which was like 9 years ago, my first F-con, and it was that feeling of like within 20 minutes, it was like, oh, I've found my tribe. These are my people at last.
Yeah.
And I always get that every year. It's that reconnection. I love catching up with people. There's always people that I miss catching up with one year, maybe to the next. Like I didn't get to spend any time with Priya Sharma this year. Normally, she and I will at least get to sit down and have a drink and chat at some point. But next year we will. That's fine. You know, I got to see her very briefly before she left, which was great. And the unexpected people too, the people you're not expecting to spend time with, but you end up in conversations with. There's always that real joy of the kind of brownie emotion of the event, right?
Yeah.
Especially at the bar on a Saturday. And I always come away fired up. I always come away thinking like, I need to get back to the keyboard. I need to get back to writing stuff. I need to get back to producing stuff because this is. I like being part of I like being in that conversation. I like being in with that group of people and having stuff to talk about and hearing what everyone else is working on. And yeah, like you say, I mean, Kaylee, it's nice to be amongst my fellow weirdos. It's a great feeling.
One last thing, because I was supremely weird at one moment. I do need to apologize to Charlotte Bond because this was
shouting her name earlier.
No, this was I was replicating what I did at the con. Actually, it was at the French press table.
Yes.
I've never actually met Charlotte in person. I always miss her at these things, but I've been reading her for a while and we've been like Facebook friends for a bit, but she does not know me. And I turned and she was right next to me. And instead of being like, oh, calmly, like, oh, hi, Charlotte, nice to meet you, I just went, Charlotte! And she was like, oh, yeah. I was like, oh, sorry. I just realised we met. Kaylee, and I was hoping you could sign this book for me. And she was very nice, but I did the fear of God was in her eyes. Random stranger screamed at her out of nowhere. So very sorry about that, Charlotte. We've talked a bit since. We've got lots of stuff in common. And isn't she like the nicest person in the world?
Charlotte's amazing. Yeah, she is. She's someone shouldn't be able to be that pleasant a human being and that good a writer at the same time. I kind of feel like that's cheating somehow. I can't explain it.
Oh yeah, I hate that shit. Like when Jonathan Jans, I'm like, you don't need the looks and the talent.
It's really frustrating, isn't it? It's like, seriously, just pick a lane.
Like Keelan Patrick Burke, like, oh, you can do art and you can get the fuck
right.
Out. Like you get one or the other, you know.
I mean, to be honest, I get borderline with Tim Levitt and his Iron Man shit. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
like, seriously,
yeah.
All of that, and you could also write like that? Are you kidding me? Yeah.
I didn't think you were going to bring up Tim Levin. I know it's probably been a letdown for Kaylee to go from seeing Tim Levin earlier today to hanging out with the hoi polloi. Yeah,
we didn't even bring any cake.
This is actually so funny though that I wanted the record to show that I didn't bring Tim up in this because I literally said to him today, we went for a cake, and I said to him today, every single time I Skype with someone or I do an author interview or I do anything live, whoever I'm talking to brings you up and likes you. And it doesn't matter what country they live in. Everyone knows him. Everyone's friends with him, and everybody loves him. And I literally said that to him like 3 hours ago. So it's really funny that it's happened again.
Well, at least you could tell him that I was annoyed with him for being incredibly physically fit and healthy, as well as being a good writer. So.
I have a photo of Tim, and I think I've shown this to you, Kaylee, that could destroy his career. But I am not sharing it.
No.
It's also like totally not mine to share, but it's
no
from back in the day. Oh yeah, no, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
He lives in the UK, remember? I just don't think it would go over the way you think it would in the States. People are like, oh, that, yeah. It's not anything horribly incriminating, everybody. Just him enjoying himself.
I'm really, really sorry I brought this up now. I just want the
No.
record to show that all I did was slander Tim's athletic ability. I have absolutely no idea what these two are talking about. And I don't want to know,
We
just
had a bunch at bringing it back around to FCon. There was a bunch of talk of Tim Lebbin's cake, and I thought it was like curry. I was like, okay, cake doesn't mean cake. It must mean something. And you're all like, no, it really means cake. I'm like, yeah, but what is cake really? Is it like coffee and cake? And like, no. It's literally just he just really likes cake. And I was like, I don't understand this country anymore.
It's one of the three things he's known for: writing excellent horror novels, being really fit and doing Iron Man and everything, and loving cake.
Okay. Yeah.
They're like
and those last two facts are intimately connected. Because it was like, I want to eat cake for the rest of my life, so I'm going to do Iron Man, which is the best reason I can imagine for doing that.
Yeah. And any time I see Tim outside of a convention, it's to go for a cake. So when I'm like, oh, I'm meeting Tim for a cake, it's not like a weird euphemism or something. It's literally...
No, I did. I was like, it must be drugs or something.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're doing. Can you imagine?
You and Tim Lebbin getting high out behind like a playground or something.
I can't even manage my migraine medication.
Anyone my age watching from the UK might remember a TV show called Brass Eye where they did actually invent a drug called cake. So there is.
Oh my god!
There is a whole satire around cake as a drug that is out there in the world.
The truth comes out. What's the show called?
Brass Eye.
Okay.
Oh, you need that. You need that in your life, Stephen. If you haven't, I know you're a bit of an. Yeah, Brass Eye is. We'll talk offline. I'll get you a copy of that somewhere because that's world class.
Possibly the single greatest work of satire that's ever been.
I need to, and we're going way off because I should have been back to work half an hour ago. But I need to see this Ghost Watch. Do you guys know this Ghost Watch thing?
Yeah.
It's like the original Blair Witch, but from the UK, and with the guy from Red Dwarf in it. And I'm like, what? How have I never seen this? They're like, oh yeah, you can't get it. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Stephen Volk is the guy who wrote that, and he also wrote Ken Russell's Gothic and a bunch of other TV, Afterlife, things like that. And he's also an author. I mean, I know Stephen. I've interviewed him a few times for Ginger Nuts of Horror, and we meet at cons. We get on. It's a shame there wasn't an FCon actually, because I would have been happy to introduce you. Yeah, Ghostwatch is. Ghostwatch is the real deal. It's absolutely astonishing. And the thing about it was that he got the reason it worked as well as it did was because he got like people who were real kind of TV personalities trying to host it. Also, so if you didn't catch the beginning bit that did say Ghostwatch, written by Stephen Volk, I think that was the thing. Anyone who tuned in like 5 minutes in or later, they just saw people who were household names doing an apparent bit of reality TV type whatever. I mean, I guess it was like the kind of real life haunting shows, but it was before those existed either. But it was almost like a template for it's you do need to see Ghostwatch. It's an incredible, I mean, it's an incredible cultural artifact. It's just also really, really, really good on its own terms. It genuinely is just a great bit of TV, cinema, whatever. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Very
cool. Staple.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. I will be back in touch with both of you shortly for business reasons, I'm sure. And thanks to everybody who joined us or are catching us later on YouTube or maybe just watching us on Facebook or whatever. Remember, make sure to pick up The End by Kaylee Dobbs, which is available now from Blackshot Book. Oh, Steve Shaw. I got to meet and hang out with Steve Shaw.
Yay!
And he won, one of his authors, I think, won an award.
Yeah.
And make sure to pick up Millionaire's Day from French Press while they'll still let you. And, of course, my latest release is Yes, I Am a Vampire, also from French Press. So thanks, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.